Well, we're going to go a little bit beyond the standard, which is, I would say, 5, 10 years ago, it was show me your bill and I'll show you a way to save 10, 20%. In this day and age, the customers in this market especially have been there and done that. What they're looking for is a true partner. So it starts with the discovery phase. We'd like to know what's the priority for the organization for the next 6 to 12 months, if not beyond, to 3 to 5 years. We would like to know the current equipment that's being used, the life of that equipment, what the current management of that equipment, how is it managed, and how is the organization looking to change and, pardon the pun, evolve in this current economic climate. If they're looking to, and I'll use an example, we were speaking to one recently that wanted to really start looking at telecommuting as an option. And for those of you who live and reside in and around Washington, D.C., or any other major market area, you understand that that's a great value to employees for a company to retain the best talent, sometimes to allow them to telecommute. So an entire VPN infrastructure was built so that they could allow the flexibility to their employees and still retain some of their most qualified and most tenured folks, so that their culture didn't change, but the way they did business changed slightly. We would want to find out what the goals of the organization were in the assessment. So it's not sitting down in a data dump. It's a dynamic conversation that happens, over the discovery. The recommendation phase is typically still a work in progress. Physio diagrams, whiteboards. Is this the way you want it to look? What can we do to make this more efficient? How does this play in your long-term goals? And then when it comes into the last two phases, the integration and deployment, I really believe that's where Paytech separates ourselves from other folks out there. Not to make this story on Paytech, but whenever you go through this process, you want to make sure that the company you're doing the assessment with can actually follow through and deploy the solution that you've decided was the best one for your organization. It's one thing to have in theory, but to have it in practice is really where the rubber meets the road and where we shine.
Gotcha. And I love that you bring up the telecommuting aspect, because one of the things that we do with a lot of our customers and potential customers is we talk about the Virginia program for telecommuting. I mean, there's some really great programs out there that Virginia is sponsoring to help with grants and help people pay for their implementation services and all of the pieces to get their staff telecommuting. And so it's a really great thing to look at. Is you look at not only leveraging what you have better, but then the resources that are out there to help drive your business a little bit further forward. So, how long does a process like this generally take with a customer?
The customer really dictates that timeline. We've got folks that we've worked with that have wanted us to do this entire assessment within a week or two, so that they could move to deployment phase very quickly because of a business need that they had in their organization. And we're agile enough to be able to do that, which I'm proud of. But more importantly, I'd rather make sure it's done right than done quickly. So again, when we're talking about a 3 to 5 year scope on a project like this, making sure that it's a scalable solution for that time period. You don't want to make rash decisions. You want to involve people at the leadership level in the organization that are looking farther out than the next, 3 months. They're looking out, how are we going to operate? Are we going to open up new offices? Are we going to consolidate? Are we going to deploy through telecommuting our workforce? So I would say, we can be fairly agile, but I'd like a good 2 weeks with at least 2 dialogues during that process. One in the discovery phase and one in the recommendation phase before we move to integration and deployment, to make sure that we're all on the same page.
So, it sounds like it's a comprehensive but not a horribly tedious process, right? It's 2 or 3 meetings to go over everything, some feedback from and collection of data. Both there's some paperwork, you're probably going to want to see some bills, want to see some documentation, the interview process, and then some presentations to see what comes of it. And so, it's a pretty painless process.
It really is, and even when we're working with folks that are not 100% understanding what they currently have in place, that 2-week window is still a good time, because we could always go in with an organization like Evolve, as we've discussed, and have them be the subject matter expert on the land side, and then that helps us get up to speed on what we can and cannot recommend to fit the needs of the organization.
Gotcha. So, one of the things that John, looks at with a lot of his discussions with potential customers is that they use hosted applications. cloud services is a big buzz these days. People are talking about it all the time. Some people host pieces out in the cloud. Does your audit take into account those kinds of applications as well?
Absolutely, Dave. And one of the things that we pride ourselves on is we have a very large breadth of services. So we can do everything from co-location, hosted, data center, all of those cloud computing type applications, as well as connectivity through standard terrestrial means via T1 facilities on and up through fiber, and even fixed wireless in this market and some of our other major markets. So what we're looking at here is that organizations are looking traditionally to gain efficiency in an economy like this. So if they have a current data center at their office that takes up 2, 5, 10,000 square feet of space, are they better served, and that's part of this assessment, are they better served migrating that data center to an off-site location and using that square footage for revenue-generating purposes? The amount of infrastructure, cost, and maintenance involved with having a data center or some very elaborate setup in a market such as Tyson's, D.C., Bethesda, Rockville, that cost per square foot is getting prohibitive at this point, when you can be putting accountants or lawyers or consultants or salespeople to actually generate revenue for the organization in that same square footage.
Gotcha. So I mean, again, the idea is we're customizing this to what they need. So let's say someone works with Evolve and with Paytech and comes out the other side and gets a network assessment. What are they going to get at the end of that? Is that a written document, a deliverable? What's the end result?
Well, it's a comprehensive document, and that we're trying to customize to what the client needs are. So we've got some documentation that has been upwards of 15, 20 pages because it's a 25-site financial institution that needed a very comprehensive overview of the hardware, LAN infrastructure, as well as connectivity. We've got other organizations that may have just one site that need more a scope of work document about what is really going to be performed for the costs associated with it, and what were the recommendations that came from the feedback from the meetings that we've had. And then there's an actionable document that they can take that and socialize it, agree to it, move forward on it, and then that way we really make sure that the document is almost a way for them to make sure we manage expectations, because we want to make sure that whatever we've committed to is what they get on the end product, and there is no disconnect as to, well, I thought we were going to get this when that wasn't in the actual scope of work. So we try and be, as one of our founding principles is to be an open communication between our clients, and that happens even in the front end with this network assessment. A very specific, salient document that talks about the scope of work, what we'll be accomplishing with this implementation, and then what the customer can expect going forward in terms of functionality and productivity.
Gotcha. And so, I mean, are they obligated to work with you any further once they get this information back?
No, they're not actually. And from a business standpoint, we felt that it was much more important for us to not charge a consulting fee for this. We felt as an agile, growing company that the more of this we do, the better off we're going to be seen in the marketplace. And we have had some opportunities where we've done a network assessment and the assessment has been spot on, but for whatever reasons, maybe the finances that were there when we started the process were reallocated before we were able to finish it. We've had to shelve projects before. That's fine. That's the cost of doing business for Paytech, and we're willing to take that undertaking because you never know what's going to come of that conversation. We've had a couple instances where it's been shelved, but they've walked us into another organization that has an immediate need because of the assessment being such a thorough document, and that's exactly what they wanted. So it's a cost of doing business for us. There's no consulting fees. There's no obligation. It's more or less just a chance for us to really demonstrate what we can do for an organization.
Yeah, and we've through our partnership, we've actually extended for anyone that does a network assessment with Paytech, particularly as a potential customer for Evolve. We actually do our more enhanced version of our network assessment, also complimentary, and we like to do, if we do the two together, we actually can give a really holistic view of the inside and outside of their network at the same time, and that's, again, one of the reasons why we like the partnership so much here is that we think your approach to it and our approach to it are very, very similar.